It's a lighting video. What is up, people? Dunna here, and today we're going to take a look at the Falcon Eyes So-48td. This has been the light that I've been using as my key light for these videos for quite some time now. If you've been around the channel for a while, you might remember that I did a review for this light's little sibling, the So-28td, and talked about how much I liked the idea of that light and how you didn't have to diffuse it. Well, this packs a lot of the same punch, but in a slightly larger package with a lot more light coming out of it. So let's break it down a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the good things about this light, some of the not so good things about this light, and some limitations you might run into, and then also who this light could be for. If at any point you have any questions about this light, make sure to head down to the comment section, leave a comment, and on your way down, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's start with a quick breakdown of this light. As you can see, it's circular. That's a little bit weird. We're used to seeing these LED panels that are square. And the reason that it's circular is because there are actually lights all the way around the edge that shoot inwards and then reflect forwards through this diffusion material. The advantage to this design is that you're getting one large light source instead of several small ones like you would see on a square panel with, let's say, 300 small LEDs on it. With those square panels, you have to put some kind of diffusion in front of it to turn it into one source. If you try to shape the light or cut it in any way, you might actually be able to see multiple shadows from each row of LEDs. In this case, because you're actually getting one big source, you don't technically have to diffuse it any further. So right away, you've got a huge convenience factor there. Now, it's called the So-48td, and the TD stands for tungsten daylight because it can go from 3000 Kelvin, like you're seeing here, a nice tungsten look, all the way up to daylight, which is 5600 Kelvin. Considering its output and the fact that it's already diffused, it has a fairly small footprint that makes it quite handy for small studio spaces. The biggest difference from the So-28td, which I'm using now as my key light, is what you see on the back here. It has the same touchscreen that's on the back, and it's fairly intuitive. You've got your color temperature on the left-hand side. You've got your percentage on the right-hand side, and this is really nice because it goes from 0 to 100% in 1% increments, so you can dial it in really nicely. And then in the top left, you've got your channel, which is kind of cool, and we'll get back to that later. And in the top right, you've got a battery indicator, so you know how much battery you have left. And actually, speaking of which, one of the things that I love about this light is that you've got options for power. Right now, I'm actually using AC power using the AC adapter that plugs in using this XLR connector. Now, there's a spot on the back for a V-mount battery if you have it, but they've also conveniently given you this strap that has a V-mount kind of attachment on it, so you can have the whole power brick just attached right in there. That way it's not dangling and pulling on this end of the cord. But if you need a little bit of extra reach out of it, you can also take that out, and now I've got just a little bit more cable. Alternatively, there's also an adapter that they give you for Sony-style NPF batteries. It plugs directly into the V-mount slot, and now you can power it with the NPF-style batteries, which is super handy because a lot of us already have tons of these NPF batteries laying around. If I throw two 970 batteries on there, it's been on for 2 or 3 hours and not run out. More typically, I just used it plugged in and then it runs forever. It's super handy that they had the option for V-mount, NPF batteries, or to plug it in though. There's a 3-way switch on the side that goes from the AC power to off, and then if you switch it the other way, it's now being powered by the battery. I mentioned before that there was a channel button in the top left corner. You'll also notice there's a little antenna here. If you have multiple Falcon Eyes lights, you can actually connect them to the same channel and control both the color temperature and the power output using only one unit. Alternatively, there is also a remote that will connect to these, so if you've got separate systems, or let's say the lights behind the subject, you want it to be on a separate channel than the key lights in front, then you can do that and you can control it all with the remote. For even more options, the whole brain comes off and it has its own V-mount on the back. One of the main and most obvious advantages to getting the 48 instead of the 28 is that it's got a larger surface, so you're going to get a softer light. Alternatively, if you want to achieve the same softness, you can actually have this one further away from you than you would have to have the So-28. If you haven't seen my video on basic lighting principles, make sure to go check that out. I'll link it up in the corner there. The other advantage to the 48 over the 28, as the numbers suggest, this light is significantly more powerful. Now, just to show you exactly how much more powerful and how different this light looks from the 28, here's a couple of examples comparing the two. So I've turned off my hair light just so that we can see the comparison between only the two different key lights, the two different sizes. So what you're looking at now is the SO28, the smaller of the two, and it's currently set to 50% power. Now we're looking at the 28 again, but I've cranked it up to 100% power. And this is the SO48, the larger of the two at 50% power. And I think you know what's going to happen next. This is the SO48 blasted at 100% power. So as you can see, this is significantly more powerful, and in the same spot, it's going to give a bit softer of a light. One of the cool things about the roundness of it is that the catch light in someone's eye is going to be nice and round, which is pleasing. Falcon Eyes claims to have a 95% or more CRI and TLCI, which basically just means that it's going to reproduce colors really accurately. When you use lower quality lights with less of a CRI or TLCI rating, that means you're going to get less accurate colors. In this case, with a 95+ rating, you should be good to go, and in my experience, they have really great color rendering. There are a couple of things that I've had trouble with this light, and they're very similar to what I said about the SO28. As far as I'm aware, there's no way to attach any kind of light shaping devices to this. This would be the advantage of something like the Aperture 120D, which is quite popular amongst YouTubers. The 120D is a smaller light source, still a single light source, but it's got a Bowens mount on it so that you can mount all sorts of different attachments to it to shape the light how you want. With this, you're pretty much stuck with what you've got. And because there's nothing like barn doors like you might see on a square panel, without setting up extra stands, there's really no way to hone in the light to go only the direction you want. It pretty much gives you a full 180-degree spread. A lot of the time when I'm pointing my key light at me, I actually have it on quite an angle, pushing most of the light past me and just using the edge of the light so that I don't have a bunch of extra spill into my background. Another downside to this light is that it's always diffused. You can't undiffuse this light. It's a fairly large light source, so it's going to give you nice soft light, but if you want more of a hard light source, you're going to have to back this up, which is going to reduce the intensity of the light. So it's kind of got this like always soft kind of thing going on. And the final thing that a lot of people might see as a con is that it is $350 US, and there are a lot of lights out there that are a lot less expensive than this. For example, if you get one of the square panels, you could probably find something like that for about $100–150, and then you could add diffusion to it to get a similar effect, which wouldn't cost a lot of money at all. So what you're paying for here is quality, of course, but also convenience, that it's kind of already set up, ready to go for you. Now, I found that convenience to be super handy in my little studio setup here, but it's going to depend a lot on what you do, what you're using it for, how much of a setup you have, and how much you care about the fact that this is already diffused for you, or if you're happy to save some money but have to set up your own diffusion each time. So that leads us really nicely into who is this light for? Who should buy it? Why is it going to be useful for you and your photos or videos? Again, like I mentioned before, number one thing here is convenience. The nice thing about this light is it's already a fairly large light source and it's already diffused, so all you do is set it up, put it in the right spot, and you're good to go. I personally think that it's a great key light for kind of medium or head and shoulder shots, so if that's something you're typically doing a lot of, I think it could be really helpful. Alternatively, if you're doing some outdoor work, whether that be photography or videography, this could be a great fill light. If you're using the sun as your key light or just the ambient light as your key light, you can use this to fill in some shadows. But the main thing that I think this light would be really great for is for YouTubers. If you're doing this kind of video, it's It's a nice, easy key light. It's so easy to set up. If you're someone like me who has to set up and tear down your entire setup every time, it's so nice to have a light that doesn't take a lot of work to get into place. And like I said, you also have the option of the smaller So-48td, which I still think is a fantastic light as well. It's significantly less expensive. It doesn't have quite all the same power options and not nearly as much power, but I think it still does a great job too. So I'll leave both of the links to those in the description below. As always, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of the So-48td? Did you think it looked that much better than the So-28td, or would you stick with the smaller model and save some money? Leave a comment below and let me know what you think, and on your way down there, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.